And today we're talking about the Patriots' recent victory over the Buffalo Bills. Sure, it was a weak victory. Like they just barely escaped with this one, but I mean, there's all sorts of things wrong with this team. Defense can't finish.
Yeah.
And offense can't finish. It's been
It's a total mess. It's a total mess, and I know what they say. A win is a win, and they're hard to come by, especially in the National Football League. And they have a two-game lead now in the AFC East. But I think these guys really need to look in the mirror and say we got to do better. I mean, you could look at this game, and it really could have gone either way down the stretch there, Brian. Ryan Fitzpatrick marched down the field on that last drive for the Bills, and luckily Devin McCourty was in the right place at the right time to make that interception. But I think we could both agree that that very well could have ended differently.
yeah. I totally agree with you. It looked as if Fitzpatrick would just keep going down the field, giving it to his running backs because they just had their way with the Patriots in that fourth quarter. They ran out for like 20 yards, 15 yards, just kept running, running, running.
Right, and I just want to go back to what you said. Obviously the defense is, as Ty Law put it yesterday, atrocious. I absolutely agree, and I think that's him being nice, but because I think he could have used a different word there. But offensively, the Patriots had a good game yesterday. They threw for Brady had 237 yards on 23 of 36, or sorry, 38 passing, two touchdowns. He had a good day. Ridley had 98 yards. But when you look at the end of the game, they're not playing a full 60 minutes of football offensively. Obviously, you don't possess the ball for 60 minutes, but I'm talking about you play well in the first quarter, you play well in the second quarter, you play well in the third quarter. What happens in the fourth quarter with this offense, I don't know. Because you can go back to Seattle, you can go back to Baltimore in close games, especially. They have no problem winning the blowouts. They have no problem with those. But in the close games, for some reason, they hit this glass wall in the fourth quarter, and they can't do what they did in the first three quarters.
What's weird is that they scored on their last 6 or 7 possessions, and they just couldn't get that touchdown on first and two.
Right,
They
exactly.
were like right there at the goal line, just like, and Ridley got bounced out, and then I bet if they went to a running attack, like again, they might have been able to get through, but like they tried to force it. Like they ran the ball way too fast. They did a quick snap, and the Bills were ready for it.
Exactly. They were ready for it. And also, if you go back to the previous possession that the Patriots had, the Bills were driving. I think this was at the end of the third quarter, leading down to the fourth quarter, and Fred Jackson had a huge fumble at the goal line, and that
Oh yeah,
swung
yeah.
all the momentum back towards the Patriots. They come out. They have a chance to now basically, stick a knife in it and probably run away with this game. What do? They come out three and out, punt the ball. Bills get the ball back, and then drive right back down the field and score a touchdown, and they make it. I think at that point it was a
Three
three-point game.
point game. Yep, 3 point game. Yeah.
And again, that's the beginning of the fourth quarter. That's the beginning of the stagnant offense. And then you put it right there. First and goal at the Buffalo 2 with about 2.5 remaining, right? They score a touchdown. They make it a two-possession game. In my mind, game's over. There's no way the Bills can cover that. And
Hmm.
they go, let's see, I'm looking at the drive chart right here. Ridley runs, gets dropped for a loss of two. All of a sudden, it's second and four. Then Ridley gets called for a false start, second and nine. Two incomplete passes by Brady. All of a sudden, you're kicking a field goal. They have to be better than that.
Yeah, I mean, they did have like some drop passes by Welker earlier in the game that could have like one of them. They scored a touchdown
They scored a touchdown
in the
anyway. But
same
yeah,
drive, but he dropped a pass that could have been a touchdown and had 2 more minutes on the clock, but like a minute or so left, more on the clock. So
right. And I mean, yes, they won, and had they lost, which again could have been a very real thing in this game that was so close, unfortunately, against a team like the Bills. Sure, we're putting a lot of blame on the offense, but again, most of the blame has to fall on the defense. The final drive, Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Bills get the ball back with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They have two timeouts plus the 2-minute warning. And looking at the final drive chart, just look at how he marches down the field. Okay, they get the ball on the touchback at the Buffalo 20. Second and 10, third and 9. This is a huge third and 9 right here. You get this stop, game's over. What happens?
mm-hmm.
Fitzpatrick pass short to Stevie Johnson, runs for 21 yards, first down. First and 10, second and 10, third and 3, first and 10, first and 10 at the New England 15. They just marched right down the field.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like it was pretty like Fitzpatrick like to throw the interception at the end. But I mean, he literally just like threw it, gave it to his running backs, made sure they had running room, like called the right plays. He did a good job of managing the game. But what I have to say is that the Patriots are actually really lucky because of all the penalties that the Bills had. 14 for 146 yards or 148 yards.
Yeah. And I just want to put it out there that the Patriots did get lucky because a few of those were BS. I mean, there was a couple of phantom holding calls. I saw pass interference that wasn't pass interference.
Yeah,
So
the one on Gronk, right? The one on Gronk in the end zone when like the ball wasn't even thrown toward him.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been pass interference. Yes, there was contact, but that wasn't a catchable ball. So I think the Patriots got lucky there, and the defense got lucky. And I hate to see guys get hurt regardless of what side they're playing on. But let's see, Fred Jackson got hurt, and that they had to burn an injury timeout for him. And I believe Donald Jones was he
Donald
the one?
Jones. Yep.
Yeah,
Donald
he got hurt on an incomplete pass. The clock was stopped, but they had to burn a timeout for him because of his injury. So again, if you're the Bills, you have those 2 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning. You can manage the game and the clock a lot better than you did. It could have been a very different outcome, but they had to burn those 2 timeouts. Now they're working against the clock. Fitzpatrick makes a bad read, throws it right at McCourty, and the Patriots escape literally by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, just to talk more about this defense, this is Ryan Fitzpatrick, by the way. This is not Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or Peyton Manning. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 27 for 40, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yes, the 1 interception at the very end of the game, but 481 yards of total offense for this team. And that includes the running game, which, I mean, we've talked about this. The run defense for this team has been
it
one
was
of the
like 80 yards per game, which is like one of the I think like 8th in the league or something like that.
There you go. And Fred Jackson, how many yards did he have yesterday? 80 or something?
Yeah, he had like 70 or so, something like that.
There you go. I have it right here. Fred Jackson, 80 yards on 16 carries. C.J. Spiller, 70 yards on 9 carries. So obviously the run defense has to be better. Fitzpatrick did get rushed, luckily, by Chandler Jones and Rob Ninkovich a couple times. So I thought the pass rush was okay. Vince Wilfork had a big sack. I think he had a strip sack, which was recovered by Jermaine Cunningham.
Yeah.
But the run defense and the pass defense were absolutely horrible. 481 total yards allowed by the Patriots defense, and the third down efficiency of 63%. 7 for 11 on third down for the Bills. Come on, it's the Buffalo Bills, man. You got to be better.
Yeah, and a lot of those were like run plays too. Like he didn't just pass the ball or like screen passes, stuff like that. Like something that's like easy, like somewhat easy to stop. Like especially with like Chandler Jones inside and Dante Hightower, people like that. The new guys are actually doing well, but it's like the cornerbacks like Alfonso Dennard and stuff like that aren't getting the job done.
Right, and I mean this worries me because what happens when you play the good teams? What happens when you come across Houston or Baltimore in the playoffs? That's not going to be a blowout. That's going to be a close game.
And also like basically they have some good plays and then they do some like offensive pass interferences or like defensive pass interferences, not offensive, but defensive pass interferences that cost the Patriots yardage against like a team like in the final minutes.
Exactly, and I saw an interesting stat yesterday. Now this one was decided by 6. It was 37-31, but this is a very concerning stat. The Pats this year in games that are decided by a field goal or less than 3 points, they're 1-3 in games that are decided that close. So it doesn't really make you feel good when there's a close game and the game's on the line. I mean, 1-3 that doesn't seem that doesn't make me too happy going, especially 7 weeks away from the playoffs. Very disconcerting to see that.
Well, luckily they have the Dolphins twice, so maybe they can work out some defensive things against the Dolphins, and then but they also face Houston and the 49ers. So.
Oh boy, those are going to be 2 tough games. The 49ers. That's going to be on Sunday Night Football. It'll be a good game, but. We'll see what happens. And before we move on to the next thing that we're going to talk about is running backs, I just want to get your opinion on McCourty's transition from corner to safety. How do you think that's working out for him?
I think it's actually better. um, because he can roam, and that's what he did anyway. Like he didn't play that position. He would just roam and cover the nearest man, and now he can have a defined position, like in the middle, like making sure that
Watch the play
none
develop.
of yeah
Yeah, I
no
think so. Yeah, I think it's I mean, obviously not a huge difference, and I don't know what to attribute his amazing, fantastic rookie year where he had seven interceptions and was a Pro Bowler, and I think he made All Pro that year too, or I might just be embellishing there. I don't know, but he had a great rookie year as a corner. So I don't know what happened all of a sudden last year if he just rested on his laurels. But now the transition to safety, I agree with you, has been somewhat better because yeah, he had the interception yesterday, and I don't think that was McCourty. I think that was just a bad pass by
yeah
Fitzpatrick.
it was the easiest interception because it was right
It was
to him.
right at him. Exactly. But yeah, I think I agree with you. He has the ability now to roam, watch the play develop, and provide help over the top. And I think for his skill set, that actually might be he might be better suited for that than as a cornerback. And obviously, it's only been a few games now. Even last year, he played some games at safety, but that was out of need because of injuries and stuff. It wasn't like they moved him there because they thought it would be better. And now we'll see. I remember Tommy Curran actually talked about this on Quick Slants, that this might be something that we see a little bit more of, at least until Patrick Chung comes back. And even maybe after that, they might still continue to roll with him, maybe as a free safety then.
Yeah, that would be really good. Like shore up that secondary a little bit and not just rely on all the cornerbacks. So
Mhm. Exactly. So we'll see what happens there. Now, very quickly, let's move on to the running backs. Obviously, Ridley, another fantastic game. He had 100 yards and then he lost it on that 2 yard loss. So he ended up with 98 yards. Woodhead continues to impress. What were your impressions with the running game yesterday for the Patriots?
well, I mean Ridley, towards the beginning he wasn't getting like those big runs, but like every once in a while he had one of those huge runs, and then the Patriots would go back to passing and not like rely on him heavily. But there was like I think one like drive where they just kept going to the running backs and they kept running and running. Like that's not what the Patriots are used to, and like they're used to Tom Brady saving it. So like it's a good thing. It saves Brady's arm for like maybe late game situations. It didn't work out yesterday, but it should work out like in playoff time. Like you need that 1 yard, and Ridley can like get like seven. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think, Ridley has been fantastic this year. Obviously, early in the season, he was battling inconsistencies because in a 120-yard game, then he'd, rush for about 40. Then he'd give you 160 yards. And I remember he had one insane game where he had, or maybe that was Bolden, but Ridley has the ability to give you these huge running numbers and then kind of trail off a little bit. I think in the last few games, he's kind of been a little bit more consistent.
well,
He's
that's
taking care of the
because
football.
Bill Belichick like went away from him every once in a while. Like would just put Vereen in there or Woodhead. Like I can see them going to a two-back thing where like Woodhead is the passing running back, and then
Like
like
Kevin Faulk.
Ridley. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah, and Ridley has been absolutely phenomenal. I think he's near the top of the league in
Yeah,
rushing. Not leading.
he's top three or like top two in the AFC right now. So
Yeah, so he's been fantastic. I want to see a little bit more from Vereen. I see him more as a power runner. Ridley is more of a speed runner. And I think Vereen gives you that value at the goal line because you and I both saw it. Ridley can't give you much at the goal line. He's too small. He's quick and fast, but he just can't get in there against those big D linemen. Even if he
yeah, he
bounces from
can't
the
go
outside.
straight ahead. He's more of like an outside, like
Yeah,
running out on the outside. Yeah.
he's outside the tackles. And I mean, whether they need to go get a fullback or see, that's where Hernandez gives you his value because in a goal line situation, he can line up as a fullback
Hmm.
and have an option to run him as a tight end, and give him maybe a fade or hand it off to him. But yeah, I think the running game has been great. I think Woodhead has been absolutely fantastic for this team. A lot of his accomplishments, he's in trouble and it's on the fly, whether it's throwing down the seam to Woodhead or in the flat or a screen, breaking off his route. He's had a lot of gains this year for 20 or so yards that are really going unnoticed, especially on third down too.
Yeah, he had that run for a touchdown yesterday. That his one rush was 15 yards for a touchdown. So
Yeah, there you go. Yep, that's right. And I mean, even on draws, if you go back to a couple weeks ago, I remember he was running a draw play on third down. It was third and long. It was like third and 15. And I was scratching my head afterwards. I mean, obviously it worked out for us because he got the first down. But I was like, why would you run a draw on third and 15? But if Woodhead can do it, I guess I got my answer right there.
yeah,
So yeah, so the running backs definitely have improved this offense. It hasn't been something that they've had the ability to do for a long time. We've seen sort of this running back by committee for the last 4 years after Corey Dillon was here for a few years, and now finally they have a running game again, and I think it's very nice to see that. Now I want to go on to Aqib Talib, who is the newest Patriot that they acquired for help in the secondary from the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now it was for a fourth-round pick, I believe, in next year's draft. So
yep,
it came cheap, low risk. He will be activated next week against the Colts, Andrew Luck's Colts. So do you think he's going to make much of a difference?
Well, I mean, Andrew Luck's gonna tear the Patriots defense apart. Like it's gonna be about where it's about the running game for
Like 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. Let's just set the over and under right there.
yeah. But luckily the Colts defense isn't good against the run, so like we can focus using our running backs, and also I don't think they're that good against like the pass. So
Yeah, I agree. Like, I can't speak much on Talib. I've heard he's a fantastic player, and he's had some good moments with the Bucks. Obviously, he has his fair share of off-the-field issues, so to speak. Right now, he's serving a 4-game suspension for PEDs or something that he took, and he's claiming it was for, I think I heard, for ADD medication or something, which is quickly becoming the popular excuse, as Tony Maserati said on Felger and Massey. Was like, yeah, that's pretty much becoming, oh yeah, it was my ADD medication. But and he also has some other arrests and things like that. So this is another player that I don't know if he's going to hang around here for the long haul unless he can kind of become a good citizen. But if he can somehow become the player that he was in Tampa, which again, he wasn't a Darrelle Revis or anything, but he was a pretty solid corner. He was a good cover corner from what I've heard. I haven't seen him play all that much. But if he can come in and provide some help, then I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
yeah, I mean, it's been like a revolving door at cornerback, seeing like who will fit into the puzzle of our secondary, and the Patriots like secondary is basically like just gone downhill. They're like I think 25th in like like for passing yard, 28th passing yard. Okay, so see how like I mean it's basically some people are saying it's worse than last year. So
Oh, I think so, yeah. I mean, last year, if you remember, they were one of the worst in the league in terms of passing yards, in terms of yards that they gave up. But they were actually pretty decent in terms of points allowed.
yeah, they were
The
like
red zone,
top like 15, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't great, but they were okay. Now this year, they're giving up 31 points to the Buffalo Bills. They're allowing the Seahawks to outscore the Patriots and win that game. What's going on here? And I mean, I think a lot of it has to fall on Belichick and the coaching staff, Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, whoever the secondary coach is. It's got to fall on them, but it's also got to fall on the players because ultimately they're the ones that have to go out there and execute. And again, I don't know if it's play calling or execution or both. And it's just this is the youngest team defensively that Belichick has coached, I think, ever. Because you go back to the Super Bowl days where, Rodney Harrison and Ty Law and guys like that in the secondary, true veterans. Now you've got Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, Kyle Arrington, Alfonso Dennard. I mean, the average age
Marquise Cole.
Marquise Cole, exactly. And even if you count the front seven, they're not all that old. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not true veterans. I mean, Gerard Mayo is the veteran middle linebacker. He's in his 5th year.
Will Fork. Don't forget about Will Fork. He's
29, and Will Fork is the senior citizen on this defense. He's not even 30 yet, I believe. So they're very, very young defense. And Will Fork, I don't even want to include him in this discussion because he's fantastic. He's had a great year when you include the front seven. I think front seven's been all right. It's the secondary, and this is a super young secondary. So hopefully they can get a little bit more veteran experience by bringing in Talib. I know this is looking ahead a little bit, but Charles Woodson isn't going back to Green Bay. That's pretty much the big news that I'm hearing out of Green Bay. If I'm Belichick, looking to next year, I'm looking at Charles Woodson. What do I have to do to bring him to New England? So that being said, I know you wanted to quickly talk about Jermaine Cunningham and how he's sort of come into his own recently after a couple of disappointing seasons after being taken in the third round out of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, last year was probably his worst year. He only had one tackle, and he played in 9 games. So, I mean, he didn't do anything last year. In 2010, he started 11 of the 15 games he played in. He had 34 total tackles, 27 solo, 7 assisted, and only 1 sack. But he also forced 2 fumbles. So, I mean, 2010 he did have some sort of some good plays, and this year he started 2 games, but he's played in all 9. He has 15 tackles and 2.5 sacks and 2 fumble recoveries. So this year he's starting to really see the field and get in on the quarterback and start becoming what Patriots fans wanted him to be.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think when we drafted him, we thought we were getting a great edge rusher, and I still think he can be that. He's obviously a little undersized. He's not a big guy. I think he's, 235, 240 pounds. That's really not all that big for his position. But finally, he's starting to come into his own now. He's making some big plays. Like you said, he recovered the fumble yesterday. I think he has one more from earlier in the season. And, they have guys like Chandler Jones and Rob Ninkovich starting at the 2 end positions, but now Jermaine Cunningham, if he can continue to play better, I think can kind of change the perception that he's sort of a bust. Because Brandon Spikes had to overcome that too. Because early on, Brandon Spikes wasn't it wasn't like he was underperforming, but he wasn't exactly performing up to the standards that we expected when we drafted him. Jermaine Cunningham can sort of follow in his his teammate footsteps from the Gators. Spikes all of a sudden now is becoming that inside linebacker that middle linebacker with Gerard Mayo, who's actually making a serious impact on this team. The punk, according to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and hopefully Jermaine Cunningham can do the same.
Yeah, he flexed after he took down Fred Jackson. You see that?
I think I did see that. So, and again, ultimately, as we wrap this up, I think the main takeaways here are the Patriots' offense need to be better late in games, because if you look at the drive chart, Brian, the first 5 possessions that they had: field goal, touchdown, 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 end of half. And then as you get later in the game, they had a punt in the third quarter and then touchdown, field goal. And then in the fourth quarter, when it mattered most in the close game, they punted on that 3 and out, and then they got a field goal when they absolutely needed to get that touchdown to close out the game.
Yeah, Bills definitely controlled that game. They had they controlled most of the minutes. I think they had 33, 34 minutes of the entire game. So
yeah, so there you go. And then the offense, and then the defense, still definitely a work in progress, to put it mildly. And then they need to figure out, hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers, Aqib Talib can make some sort of impact next week against the Colts, because if this is how it's going to be, we're just going to start trying to outscore teams, play sort of a Western Conference basketball type approach where we're not going to play defense. We're just going to try to outscore them, and the final score of this game is going to be 137 to 120, because that's pretty much what Western Conference basketball is all about. And it kind of, if you apply it to football, let's just try to outscore them 35-31. Yes, this is an elite offense, but if they can't close at the end of games, good luck. I mean, I know Tom Brady pretty much carried them to the Super Bowl last year with that offense, but in this league, and in any sport, defense wins championships, and so far, I don't see this as a championship team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they could compete with, say, Atlanta or Houston.
Yeah. I mean, if Atlanta gets that far to the Super Bowl and somehow this team makes it to the Super Bowl, I don't think they can get over Atlanta. I don't think they can beat Baltimore in the playoffs. And if the season ended today, it would be in Baltimore, that game. They can't get through Houston. Houston's going to end up, if they continue to play this way, being the best. They'll lock up the #1 seed, first round bye, home field throughout. So, definitely a lot of work to be done with this Patriots team. And I guess we have 7 weeks. So we'll see if they can try to get things figured out, change some personnel, shake things up. I was high on Razai Dowling. All of a sudden, he's on injured reserve again for the second time in 2 years. I think, in my opinion, he's the best cover corner on the team. Unfortunately, he's made of glass because he keeps getting hurt, and it's the same for when he was in college with Virginia Tech. So hopefully Talib works out, and looking ahead to next season. And again, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm really keeping my fingers crossed for Charles Woodson because I know he's not going back to Green Bay. If Belichick can somehow find a way to bring him in here, that would be amazing. So, okay, that's pretty much, I think, all we have to talk about on this edition of Boston Sports Talk. So, Brian, thanks so much. I'm Ashish Sharma, and I guess we'll catch you guys next week whenever we have something else to talk about. All right? Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.